That's really good. Most people don't get that. But it's really true. And 25, almost 30 years ago, I went to a seminar on self-improvement. And here's the amazing thing is, I've never stopped learning along the way. You know, I'm in my mid-50s now, hard to believe, because I only look 32. But it's really amazing. But in my mind, I do. I got to tell you a funny story. Years ago, I went to a Robin Williams concert. You remember the great Robin Williams? And I'm sitting in the front row and watching the concert. He's so funny. And he stops and he looks at me. And I say to my friend, oh my God, Robin Williams is looking at me. And my friend says, you're so full of yourself. Anyway, the concert's over. As I'm leaving, this guy comes from backstage and says, oh, Mr. Williams, would like to see you backstage. So I go backstage, and he comes up to me and he goes, oh my God, dude, you freaked me out so much. You look so much like me. Can I get a picture with you? True story. So my first reaction is, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I look like a big famous Hollywood movie star. And then I put my hand around him and we take a picture, and I realize he's about 15 years older than me. He's the world's hairiest human being. And I go, oh my God, I look like Robin Williams. You know, the point of that story is, it doesn't matter how the world sees you. In my mind, I'm Brad Pitt. So all of you may see Robin Williams, but in my mind, it's Brad Pitt. But, you know, congratulations on being here, because, you know, that's really the key is you've got to keep investing in yourself, and you've got to find a way to make some money. You've got to find another way to add value and move your life forward in some monetary way. Here's the reality of living in this country. You have to make a certain amount of money. And it's good to have a great job, and it's great to go to school and do all of those things, but if you have an opportunity to make some other money along the way, you should absolutely pursue that. Because the reality is, if you want to take care of the people that you love, you need a certain amount of money. It's just the way it is. I was born in a communist country called Yugoslavia. And in a communist country, you don't think about money. You know why? Well, there is none. And if you make money, they take it away from you. Because the general feeling is, we're all created equal. Now that's a very funny thing. I don't believe, as my mom used to say to me, she used to say to me, Robbie, that's what she called me, she goes, Robbie, no one in this world is better than you, and you are no better than anybody else. But the flaw in we're all made equal is for those of us that want to work harder and get ahead, then to have that money taken away from us and given to somebody who doesn't want to work, that's a problem. And that's what my dad struggled with. He had no problem with equality. He had a problem with working really hard for his family and not being able to get a better apartment, better health care, or any of that kind of stuff. So what happens in a communist country, when you speak bad things about communism, you know what they do to you? They throw you in jail. Yeah, there's no such thing as free speech. So my dad got thrown in jail once, got thrown in jail again. He got thrown in jail 22 times, believe it or not. And the last time he went to jail, they said to him, if you come back, you will never come back. So he grabbed my mom and me, I'm an only child. We crossed the border to Italy. And just to make my life even more melodramatic, he got a job on a boat called the Cristoforo Colombo. True story. And we came to Canada, where we started with one suitcase and about $20, $30, and we lived in someone's basement for 18 months. And that's how we started. And do you know why we didn't come to America? Just a funny story, not to get political. My dad went because to him, America, the land of opportunity. So we went to Italy, we went to the customs office, went up to the window, and we went to the immigration officer, and the guy said, "Tell me about your skill set." My dad had no skill. He was a blue-collar guy, worked in a factory, had no trade, no education, nothing, and so they wouldn't take him. But you know what they said to him? "Go down the hall, because we hear those Canadians will take anybody." And that's how we ended up in Canada, and that's how we started out. And I've been living in America for the last 4 years, and for me, I always think, what an incredible journey we all have the opportunity to live, and the story we get to create. And it's really, you're not here today for my story. You're not here today for the story of the person sitting next to you. You're here to create your own story. And part of creating that story is having that deep belief in what it is you want to do. And it's not about making more money. Have you ever asked somebody, "Hey, do you want to make more money?" And they said, "Oh, absolutely not. No, I want to be poor." Yeah, I wake up every day and saying, "How can I make less today?" Nobody wakes up and says, "I want my life to suck." Everybody wakes up and wants to do better. But there's a difference between desire and belief. And you know what the difference is? Showing up. Number one reason people don't succeed is they don't show up. They don't show up for events like this. They don't do the follow-up from an event like this. They don't wake up early. I wake up every day at 5 o'clock. And I always have. And here's the crazy thing. You know what my friends say to me? "I wish I could do that." Like I was born with a chip in my brain. People say to me, "Aren't you tired?" And I'm like, "Yes! Of course I'm tired. I'm tired all the time." But I would much rather be tired than poor. It's a conscious choice. Here's a funny secret for you. When I was younger, I didn't wake up early. It wasn't in my genes. You all know somebody who wakes up early every day and that's how they are. I wasn't that guy. But I read somewhere a long time ago, do any one thing for 21 days in a row and it becomes habit. Because the key to success is discipline. And the key to discipline is habit. I guarantee you, wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow, do it for 21 days. On the 22nd day, you know what you're going to do? Wake up at 5 a.m. And it won't be hard. The other element is everything that you believe in, that you're willing to action, is a direct result of the amount of pain that you're willing to bear. When the pain of your present situation is so great that you can't take it anymore, you will change. But until that point, you know what you'll do? Make an excuse. You got to show up. You want to get ahead? You got to show up. Whether it's at 5 in the morning, 11 at night, 3 in the afternoon. And I don't mean you got to show up just by showing up. You got to show up and you got to add value and you got to contribute and you got to listen and you got to start at the bottom of the totem pole. Because here's the unfair thing about success in this country. The further down you are on the totem pole of life, the harder you have to work. Is it fair? Absolutely not. My dad worked 2 shifts, swept floors in a factory. He came to this country when he was 37 years old, no money, didn't know a living soul, didn't even speak the language. Nothing I do in my life will ever be as hard as what that man did. Nothing. Do you think I ever heard him complain? Never. You know why? Don't disrespect what puts food on the table. And if that means sweeping a floor, if that means working 2 shifts, it's just what you got to do. The person sitting next to you comes with a different story. Maybe their parents were better off. Maybe they come from a better neighborhood. Maybe they're rich. Maybe they're better looking. Maybe they have the gift of gab. Maybe they're more comfortable in certain situations. Who cares? Farther down that pole of privilege, the harder you have to work. Because here's the best thing about being here. You can write your own story. You can create anything you want. The world doesn't really care as long as you add value. The best way to get ahead is to add value. And how do you add value? Narrow knowledge. People don't make a lot of money for general knowledge. I have a friend of mine. He knows, he watches Wheel of Fortune. He knows all the answers. We play Trivial Pursuit. He kicks my behind. I ask him about the latest celebrity gossip. He's on top of it. He knows which Kardashian's having a baby when. I don't know any of that stuff. You ask me about cybersecurity. Oh, I know it all. I am very, very deep in a very narrow scope of knowledge. The world doesn't reward mediocrity. The world rewards knowledge. And so the best way to become a success is to know something that someone is willing to pay for. If everything you know and all your knowledge is so general that I can just pick it up somewhere, why do I need you? If your knowledge of real estate or finance is so superficial that I just know it, what value are you adding to me? I guarantee you don't know as much as I do about cybersecurity. So if you want to get to that point, you have to have that level of knowledge about a very narrow field. So that's key number 1. Belief, but not fluffy belief. Show up, participate, engage kind of belief. You know what? Rule number 2? Action. So I got to tell you a funny story. So, you read these books and you think, oh, the key to just getting ahead in life is you just got to believe. I just got to believe, baby. As long as I believe, woo, it's going to be a fortune. At the end of that rainbow. So the other day I'm sitting around and I'm thinking, it's all mind over matter, right? As long as I believe. So it was a Thursday, my wife's out of town. I'm thinking, I'm going to do something this weekend. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go run a marathon. I haven't run a marathon, but it seemed really hard. And I figured, as long as I believe, I can do it. I mean, for mere mortals, they have to train. They put in years of discipline. That's not me, because I'm just going to believe. So I wake up the next day. I find a marathon somewhere in Arizona. I show up. It's a small marathon, and it's 13 and a half miles out into the desert on a highway and 13 and a half miles back. I'm figuring, how hard can this be? So the marathon starts. This was just a few weeks ago. The marathon starts. Woo! I am on fire. Like I am passing people. I'm thinking, I wish I would have brought my phone to see what the qualifying time is for the Boston Marathon. I'm thinking this is going to be such a great story for my next speech. How I'd never run a marathon, I never trained, and I just went out and I finished. I'm thinking, what time am I going to finish in? 4 hours would be good. 3 would be great. A mile 13, my pace is on fire. I haven't run 13 miles in 15 years, but that doesn't matter. I'm on fire. Mile 16, I'm kind of feeling it. I'll slow down a little. I slow down. Mile 17, I'm really slow. I'm in the middle of the desert on a highway. I don't see another car. I'm thinking, what if I can't finish? Are the coyotes going to eat me? So I'm slowing down. All of a sudden I hear, I look behind me. It's an 85-year-old woman running. How do I know she was 85? Because she told me. As she ran by me, she said, I'm 85. Why are you walking? I mean, oh no, lady, I got you. So I ran past her. Mile 19, I'm walking again. I can't do it. She finally passes me a mile 20. I'm like, I just got to get to mile 20. I got to get to mile 20. Mile 20, I stop. I look around. I see a car. I wave the car down. And I hitchhike back to the finish line. So I get in the car. Guy's driving, doesn't say a word for like a couple of miles. And then he says, aren't you the guy from Shark Tank? I'm like, don't ask. Then, of course, he goes on and tells me how many marathons he's run and all this other stuff. The point of the story is, it's really great to believe, but it's better to train.
Yeah.
So the funny thing about being really successful and making a lot of money is everybody wants to do it. And you know what? It's really hard. Now, only 3% of families in the United States make over $100,000 a year. 1% of individuals. Sounds really daunting, right? But 1% of 350 million is a lot of people. The 350 million people don't believe they're not great. The difference is typically the 1 and 3% train and develop and take time. It took me 10 to 15 years to become an overnight success. Today, oh, it was easy. 15, 20 years ago, it was super hard. And you know, to this day, it's still super hard. People often say to me, gee, I wish I was you, because you have this big company, you have 300 employees or whatever. Your life is so easy. I'm like, oh yeah. Running my business is super easy. $45 million in payroll every year out of my pocket. Super fun. It's hard, and it continues to be hard. You know, my belief is this. Life, and I hate to say this to you, life doesn't actually get any easier. You know what happens? You just get stronger. You just get stronger because the reasons you do things give you more clarity. You know, when I was 20, I wanted a Ferrari. Who doesn't want a car, right? I want to have my own jet. I want to live in a big house. But I wanted without that level of engagement. Today, I've got kids, I've got a wife, I have a lot of people that depend on me. The world is very, very clear to me. And what I love about this country is everybody is given a second chance. I was 52 years old. I went through a horrific experience. I thought I was back at zero. I thought it was all going to come crashing down. And you know what my first reaction to it was? Misery. You know what I did? I woke up, and did I wake up and say, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to go and do it? You know what my first reaction was? Why me? Woe is me. I felt miserable for myself. I felt sad. I wanted to complain, and I did. And what I realized really quickly is nobody really cares. You know, your friends, they love you. My family loves me. But complaining doesn't get me out of the situation I'm in. But the great thing here is you can start all over again. The story of your life can begin today, regardless of the pain from yesterday. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Throw away all those old chapters and write a new book. If you don't like how it started, let it go. You can start all over again. Colonel Sanders didn't start Kentucky Fried Chicken until he was 60 years old. You know, there are days, like I'm 54 now, there are days where I think, oh my God, I'm so old. Oh my gosh. And do you guys remember a show called The Brady Bunch? Remember Florence Henderson? She was one of my wife's best friends. She was 85. So whenever I feel sorry for myself, I'd have dinner with her, and she'd say to me, honey, I wish I was your age. And she said something to me that really stuck with me. She said, I know you feel like life in some ways is passing you by. I know you feel like you're getting old, but let me put it for you in perspective. I'm 30 years older than you. Think back 30 years ago. And I did. I don't remember what I was doing at 25. It seemed like a million years ago. And what it did for me, it made me realize the future is unlimited. Because you know what? I'm smarter today. I'm stronger today. I understand I have to show up just like everybody in this room. You did something one of your friends didn't. You showed up. And it can be the first step. You can choose not to do anything with it. Or you can have one of those moments when you look back and you remember. Do you remember when we were at that seminar with that guy from Shark Tank? It was okay, but man, I got so much out of that day. The third thing is results. So you got to have the belief, you got to have action, but you got to have the results. I have a great saying that I came up with on the show in a very, very brief flash of brilliance. A dream without a timeline is just a mirage or something. What did I say? I even forget now. The point of it is you have to have a timeline. So if you want to invest in real estate, or you want to start a portfolio, or you want to get a new job, you got to put a timeline to it. There is a limit to your life. And there is a limit to every dream. And it doesn't mean you should give up on that dream. It just means you can pivot. When I was 18 years old, did I want to be one of the top cybersecurity people in the world? No. I didn't know what a computer was. You know what I wanted to be? Brad Pitt. I wanted to be a big TV star. Just took 30-something years, but forget that. But you can change. People spend too much time on something that is going nowhere. And how do you know it's going nowhere? Because there are no results. You know, we hire salespeople in our organization all the time. And salespeople always say to me, oh, Robert, I know if I don't sell something, you guys are going to fire me and, I'm not going to be successful. It's absolutely not true. If you sell nothing and you have no meetings and no calls and no activity, yes, we're going to fire you. You have to have measurable results. You know, it's little steps that build to a momentum, that build to a crescendo, that make you wake up one day and say, aha, right? It's like building a house. When they build a house, what do? They excavate the land. They pour the foundation. Like if you've ever lived next to someone who's under construction, it's months where you think nothing is happening. You know what's happening? They're putting in the pipes. They're putting in the electricity. They're putting in the foundation of success. And then one day in 2 weeks, they put up the house. They didn't build the house in 2 weeks. It took a year, but they had steps along the way. And everything you do has some element of results that you can measure against it. And so you just got to figure out what those things are for you along the way. I got to tell you, and so my other context out of all this is I'm a highly motivated guy, and you know, I'm deeply get ahead and do better and all the other stuff. But I got to tell you, my dad was the real foundation for me. When I was younger, I would say to him, I was saying this story to Brian earlier, my dad, people say, was your dad a really motivating guy? And I'd say, hard to think about motivation when you're working 2 shifts in a factory sweeping floors. You know what you're really thinking about then? Food on the table. Motivation is really easy when you have nothing. You know, I would have these conversations with my dad. What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to be? And he'd look at me and say, I want to pay the bills. Because in the measure of his life, that was success. So my dad's advice to me was always, it's great to believe, it's great to have dreams, but rule number 1, pay the rent. Because if you're paying the rent, you have the right to dream. If you can't pay the rent, you don't have the right to dream. Because you got to live. You got to sustain. You got to put food on the table, and you got to take care of the ones that you love. And that's just reality, right? So if that means you have to put your dream on the back burner, and it may take you a little longer, it's going to take you a little longer. But here's the thing. There is no exclusive club of successful people that you can't get in. You're not going to get to a point where you're going to knock on the door and say, is this the club of successful people? Can I get in? It's always open for you. It has no age limit, no color, no sex, and it doesn't matter. It'll be there if you can get there. And one of the greatest things I find, so I'm a pretty success-oriented guy, less a money-oriented guy. Don't get me wrong, I love money. Always use another car, bigger plane, nicer house, better suit. Who wouldn't? But the problem with money is it doesn't keep you warm at night. And the problem with money is if that's your goal, you're always going to be frustrated because there's always somebody who's going to have more. I remember when I bought my first Corvette, I thought I was the coolest guy in the world. I took my Corvette, I took it out for a drive, I put the top down, I went to a stoplight, I raced all the other cars, stopped at a red light, and a guy shows up next to me in the Lamborghini. I didn't feel good about my Corvette. And that's wrong. It was the same car. It was the same desire. And so my final message is, you gotta have something that's bigger than you. The amount of pain you have to go through in life and the amount of suffering that you can be exposed to is unspeakable. And if you think you're going to get through all that and get knocked down and wake up the next day and have the same level of belief and desire because you want to make another buck, no, I don't think so. You have to have something that's bigger than you. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be the desire to send your kids to a better school. It could be a new fridge because you never had a fridge when you were small. It could be getting out of the neighborhood you have. It doesn't matter. No one's here to judge your dreams and your desire, but it's got to mean something to you. You know, for me, it was sacrifice of my parents. My parents gave up everything to give me the opportunity I had. And I felt if I didn't get ahead in life, their entire life was meaningless. What a lot of pressure to put on myself. But it worked. And here's the great thing is when I made a little bit of money, my dad and I love cars. So when we first came to America, you know, you got to keep in mind, I come from a country where the hottest car was something called a Yugo. Not so hot. So my dad and I come to Canada, and we're walking down the street, and we see this car coming down the street. And I'm like, wow, what's that? And my dad says, you no mind, that Cadillac. And I'm like, what's a Cadillac? He says, you no mind, that for rich people. I didn't know what a Cadillac was. I didn't know what rich people was. But man, I knew I wanted both of those. So years later, I'd make a little bit of money, and I'd buy, you know, a really nice car, I'd buy a Corvette, and I'd take it to my dad's house, and I'd say, huh? Corvette? What do you think? And my dad would say, it's nice. No Cadillac. Then buy a Rolls Royce, and I'd bring it over, and I'd say, handmade in England. Ooh. It's nice. No Cadillac. So one day, I'm driving downtown, I call my dad, and I say, look, I'm building a fence, which is such a lie. I'm the least handy guy in the world. And, you know, this is before GPS. I pretend we're lost. I say, oh, let's have a coffee. And my dad's like, you idiot! Use the map! So we're having a coffee. I say, hey, there's a Cadillac dealership across the street. Let's go have a look. He's like, no! So we go across the street. We're staying there. Huge showroom, completely empty, except for a Cadillac Sedan DeVille in that beautiful white sparkly color that only Cadillac makes. Only car in the showroom. We go up to it, and I'm like, what do you think? He's like, oh. I'm like, why don't you sit in it? He's like, no, my jeans dirty. I'm like, it's okay. I open the door, he sits inside, puts his hands on the steering wheel, and I don't care what it is